I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, July the 26th, brought to you in part by Cargill Fescue EMT. Help defend your cattle against endophyte infested fescue. You know that endophytes in that fescue really impairs the circulation on cattle, makes it hard for them to cool off in these extreme temperatures, causes them to spend more time in the ponds, more time in under the trees, and you need to do what you can to fend that off. But look at the trade on Wednesday. Bassett, Nebraska had another big sale up there with some of those monster prices like they get there in the Sand Hills, and it helped the index, the feeder cattle index levels recover. Of course, we won't find out yet on the CME index, but it sure helped the real-time index recover, and we'll talk about that when we get to it on the feeder cattle a little bit later. But look at the board on Wednesday. August live cattle futures up 97. Remember, I told you on the previous visit if we could have a halfway up day, we'd be higher for the week, and we're already there. 109.02 for your August live cattle contract. October was up 45 cents at 110.77. August feeder cattle up 7 cents at 152.82. Go out to October on the feeder cattle, down a dime at 154.45. Not much going on in the feeder cattle arena on the board. But fat cattle sales have been pretty much non-existent so far this week. We've got another standoff, and the longer it stands off and the more the board kind of holds together, the more it looks like we're going to be steady to higher. But Fed Cattle Exchange offered several cattle on there on Wednesday morning, 1,250 head, but didn't have any sales. The packers are really slow to support that market because it is an active competitive market, which you know, why would they want to compete when they don't normally have to? But did have a little activity on there. You did have one pen of cattle that was PO'd or passed out, not pissed off, at 111. And so, you know, evidently that seller believed that, you know, we're sure going to get closer to steady. He didn't want to take a week before last market on there, but very, very few sales, not much at all going on there. And but the longer it drags on, the further we get to Friday, like I said, if the board will hold together, we've got a lot of positives out there, and we should be able to get the steady or better, and that steady would be 113 predominantly. Box beef cutout values continue to show that maybe they have bottomed out here seasonally, with choice cuts on Wednesday afternoon 204.64 down a penny, and selects at 197.58 down just 37 cents, but starting to move product there, and that's basically steady. Look at your slaughter so far for the week through Wednesday. 350,000 head, that's down 5,000 from last week, but up 4,000 from the same week a year ago. Talk about your feeder cattle markets. Let's show that real-time index that had a big recovery. It's always current, and like I said, in real time. RTI value on Beef Market Central late on Wednesday sitting at 149.04. That's up $1.63. That's a good charge there, starting to close the gap on your August feeder cattle contracts and get up there where the better strings of cattle will sell. You compare that to the latest CME cash feeder cattle index for Tuesday. It's sitting at 148.17, but I promise you it'll be higher whenever it comes out on Thursday for Wednesday's trade. Like I said, it always seems like it's a day late. But let's look at some on-site feeder cattle auctions. OKC West had their yearling sale on Wednesday, 6,000 head. Feeders steady to $2 higher, continuing to gain steam there. If you remember, the 1,500 of those 6,000 that sold on Tuesday were calves, and they were unevenly steady. Dodge City, Kansas had a light run again, and they won't have a sale next week. Going to have a special there next weekend, but not having a sale on Wednesday of next week. But Dodge City, Kansas, just 1,000 head. Not a lot of cattle moving in that area right now. Feeder steers on a light test were $2 to $4 higher. Let's talk about that Bassett sale in Nebraska there. Had 3,000 head on offer compared to 2 weeks ago when they had that big special that kind of set the world on fire. $5 to $10 higher than 2 weeks ago. So we're gaining ground here with help from some of those big videos that are selling some of those cattle, especially the program cattle, even if they're just hormone free, dollars and dollars higher than what we've seen. But we're continuing to gain ground, and we're getting up in there to some pretty good market levels on these feeder cattle, which we're going to need as we start to get into the fall and get into some droves of calves that will be hitting the market. But look at some of these quotes from Bassett. 77 head of steer calves weighed 633 pounds at 194. Wow, that's a pretty big price there, guys. Look at some yearlings there. 181 head of 856 pound yearlings, so those will go into index pools there. 856 pounds, $160. That helps quite a bit. And then they had 200 head of 983 pound steers, bring 150.35. But getting back into reality, I want to give a shout out to a market in the east and in the southeast for sure that we don't normally talk about, but talk about how things kind of work. Harry Floyd, that owns 2 sale barns down in the southeast there, got in touch with us at DV Auction and Cattle Market Central. He saw the national beef wire screen here that scrolls over my head, and you've probably seen in some of the sale barns that we've put one up in, and wanted one of those in his sale barn, wanted his market to scroll on there, especially his bigger market there in Savannah, Tennessee. Got a hold of his clerk system, which is Market Systems, John Jackson system, which is pretty predominant in the southeastern part of the United States for a sale barn clerking system. He stayed after him and got that deal to working. Now Hardin County Stockyards in Savannah, Tennessee scrolls on the national beef wire every week. He has a lot of small lots, of course, being in the southeast, but usually has at least 1 or 2 or 3 loads of good yearlings there, as they're starting to put yearlings together there in that part of the southeast, and that's the best way for your southeastern producers to add value to their own cattle, is to keep them local, get them backgrounded, put some weight and time on them, and then offer them back up as load lots of yearlings. And look at here, 65 head of 757 pound steers in Savannah, Tennessee at Hardin County Stockyards bring 158.75. That is nothing to sneeze at by any stretch of the imagination. He's enjoying seeing his market scrolled on National Beef Wire so good that today we got the call that he wants his other sale barn to be set up the same way at Tennessee Valley Livestock in Florence, Alabama. So I'm telling you guys, down in the southeast, you may not think you've got a sale barn that's big enough to run on Cattle Market Central or National Beef Wire, but we're willing to do the same kind of a deal with you guys. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.